There is a bigger storm building up in the gospel, bigger than the one that is happening in the Lake of Galilee, as described by St. Matthew. Please do not forget that we are still in that same chapter of Matthew that began with the story of the prophet John the Baptist being subjected to a death penalty by the governor of Galilee, Herod Antipas. You know, the senator is right. Death penalty is in the Bible. And its easiest targets were not criminals, but people who were perceived as opponents by those who were in power. If Herod had succeeded in getting rid of the pesky prophet John the Baptist, well, surely he would now be after those who were closely associated with him. And among them, Jesus would surely be next in line. These are very critical times that are being described by Matthew. And word had just been sent to Jesus about the crisis. And the most logical thing for Jesus to do in this hot political atmosphere is to chill down, using the vocabulary of young people nowadays, to chill down a little bit. Matthew tells us that Jesus actually decided to withdraw in a boat to a secluded place. But people followed him, bringing the sick to him. And Jesus did not have the heart to dismiss them because they had come from faraway places by foot. And so he attended to them. Not only did he pray over them, he even gave them a big banquet from the 5 loaves and 2 fish, which was the reading the previous Sunday. Our gospel today is about what happens after the story of the feeding. Now it is quiet. He has already sent off his disciples to go ahead of him to the other side of the lake. And he has sent home the crowd, satisfied. Now he can be alone. Instead of getting into the boat that was prepared for him, he decides to go up to the mountain to seek some solitude in prayer. Perhaps both to grieve the loss of John the Baptist, as well as to confront his fears over the political storm that has led to John's execution. He is fully aware, as I have said already, that he could be next in line. We have many fears ourselves. And when confronted by our fears, we become anxious. It is a normal thing to be worried or to be anxious sometimes, especially when we are dealing with our uncertainties, such as during this pandemic. But when we are already unable to sleep, when our dreams become nightmares, when we cannot function normally anymore, when we turn paranoid or fall into depression, then we are already dealing with a mental health issue that is called an anxiety disorder. The gospel tells us Jesus had a unique way of confronting his fears. He does it through prayer. Remember, He did the same thing at the Garden of Gethsemane when He knew that He was about to march into His own death. They say when people are threatened, they tend to seek the company of other people for support. So, you might ask, why does Jesus want to be alone? Well, Jesus seeks solitude in prayer, not to be alone, but precisely to be in the company of His Father in heaven. It is through prayer that Jesus is able to conquer fear. Why is prayer an effective way of dealing with our fears? Let me propose two answers. First, it enables us to see things as they are and how God is at work in them. And secondly, it enables us to see from God's perspective. So the first, prayer enables us to see things as they really are. You know well, fear tends to exaggerate what we see. It makes us see ghosts, like the disciples did. They were looking at Jesus, but what they saw was a ghost. It tends to blow things up beyond proportion. Remember how terrified the Israelites were with the Philistines when Goliath, the giant, came? And their reaction was, "He is so big, how can we defeat him?" There is one author who suggests that when the little boy David saw Goliath, what he said to himself was, "He is so big, I cannot possibly miss my target." In our first reading, the prophet Elijah is in flight. He is the last Israelite prophet who has remained alive. All the other prophets had been murdered by the government of King Ahaz and Queen Jezebel, the murderous tandem. And now Elijah is feeling burnt out and defeated. He sleeps, but he doesn't even want to wake up anymore. The angel of the Lord supported his journey by feeding him, waking him up and feeding him. And like Jesus, he is going up to the mountain to confront his fears. And everything that he sees at first is exaggerated. First, there was a violent wind. Second, there was a rambling earthquake. And third, there was a raging fire. But it is not until the things calm down through the murmur of a gentle breeze that he hears the voice of Yahweh and eventually regains his equanimity. Second, prayer nurtures faith, which helps us conquer our fears by changing our perspective. From the mountain experience, we begin to relativize our fears in the context of the larger horizon. I think that is the symbolism of going up to the mountain. You get a larger horizon, a wider view of things. From the mountain experience, look at human inventions. They are mostly in response to our experiences of limit situations in life. People conquered their fear of the ocean. How? By inventing boats and galleons and steamships. We conquered our fear of the wind by inventing airplanes and helicopters. Athletes conquer their fear of danger by developing gymnastic agility. How many performing artists have had to conquer their stage fright before they gain confidence before a huge audience? One little traumatic experience with an object or an insect can make a blind impress on our consciousness. We call them phobias, from the Greek word phobos, which means fear. Fear. Fear makes us unable to see a spider as a spider. It becomes a monster if you have a phobia. Fear makes us unable to see a snake as a helpless reptile that is also afraid of you, perhaps more afraid of you than the poor snake, than you are of the poor snake. In the gospel, Peter is receiving a mentoring on how to conquer his own fear. His companions see a ghost, but he already hears that it is Jesus. So instead of drawing away, he draws near by walking to his direction on the water. And he's actually able to make a few baby steps. And all that Jesus had to say was, "Come." Prayer, is a response to Jesus' invitation to come to him, to learn from him, to do as he does. You want to find rest? Come to Jesus and learn to be gentle and humble of heart. You want to conquer your fear of the storms of life? Come to Jesus. Come to me is his invitation. But stay focused only on Jesus. You are an image and likeness of God. Do not forget that. You are an image of the God who has power over creation. Jesus, as it were, is telling you, if I can carry my cross, so can you. If I can walk on water, so can you. If I can drive out the unclean spirits, so can you. If I can forgive, so can you. But you have to have faith, not in yourself, but in the God who will work through you. This is how Jesus is teaching his disciples to pray. He invites you to imagine yourself not as a slave before a master or a mere creature before a creator, but as a child before your father or mother. In prayer, Jesus is inviting you to think of yourself as a baby who is being taught by his father to start walking, or as a little boy to ride on a bicycle with your father accompanying you, or being taught to dive in a swimming pool, or to handle a bird. Sometimes he would toss you up in the air like an innocent child. But instead of reacting in fear, you scream with delight and laugh, knowing that he is down there waiting to catch you in his open hands.